My name is Isla, 32 years old, standing in the freezing snow with my 6-year-old daughter Emma, looking back at the house that used to be ours. Marcus, my husband of 8 years, just threw us out into the worst blizzard Boston had seen in a decade. Behind him, his mistress Veronica stood wearing my silk robe, smirking as she watched us shiver. My phone buzzed with 47 missed calls from our family lawyer, but Marcus had no idea who I really was. Before I share what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Please hit that like button and subscribe, because what you are about to hear is the sweetest revenge story you will ever witness, where karma comes served ice cold, just like that December blizzard. 8 years ago, I met Marcus at a charity fundraiser in downtown Boston. I was 24, fresh out of Harvard Business School, and desperately trying to live a normal life despite being the sole heir to Sterling Industries, my father, William Sterling's empire worth $2.3 billion. The company sprawled across real estate, technology, and pharmaceutical divisions, with offices in 17 countries and over 40,000 employees worldwide. My father had given me one piece of advice when I turned 21 and gained access to my first trust fund payment. He said that money attracts the wrong people, and if I ever wanted to find genuine love, I should never reveal my true identity until I was certain someone loved me for who I was, not for what I had. Those words shaped every decision I made in my 20s. So there I was at that charity event, introduced as Isla Matthews, a freelance marketing consultant. It was not entirely a lie, since I did consult for various Sterling Industries subsidiaries, though nobody knew I was actually making strategic decisions that affected millions in revenue. I wore a simple black dress from Nordstrom Rack instead of the designer gowns hanging in my secret wardrobe. I drove a 10-year-old Toyota Camry instead of the Bentley Continental sitting in storage. I lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Brookline instead of the Sterling family estate in Beacon Hill. Marcus approached me that night with confidence that bordered on arrogance. He was 28, worked as a middle manager at a financial services firm, and had the kind of traditional good looks that made other women turn their heads. Dark hair, always perfectly styled grey eyes that seemed to pierce right through you, and a smile that he deployed like a weapon. He bought me a drink, made me laugh with stories about his incompetent co-workers, and seemed genuinely interested when I talked about my passion for sustainable business practices. Our courtship was whirlwind by design, though I did not realize it at the time. Marcus pursued me with the determination of someone who had identified their target and would not stop until they had secured it. Flowers delivered to the coffee shop where I worked on my laptop. Surprise lunches where he would drive across town just to spend 30 minutes with me, weekend trips to Vermont where he would rent cozy bed and breakfasts and spend hours telling me about our future together. 6 months into dating, he proposed. It was romantic and public at Fenway Park during the 7th inning stretch, with 30,000 people cheering as I said yes. My father was travelling in Switzerland at the time, and when I called to tell him, he asked only one question. "Does he make you happy, sweetheart?" When I said yes, he gave his blessing but reminded me to protect myself. I thought he meant emotionally. I should have known William Sterling always meant financially too. We married a year later in a small ceremony. Marcus insisted on keeping it intimate, just family and close friends, which worked perfectly for me, since it meant I could avoid inviting the Sterling Industries board members and business associates who would have blown my cover immediately. My father attended as William Matthews, a retired real estate investor from Florida, a cover story we had perfected over the years. He walked me down the aisle in a rented tux instead of his usual custom Armani, and nobody suspected that the quiet older gentleman was worth more than everyone else in attendance combined. The first year of marriage was everything I had dreamed of finding. Marcus was attentive, affectionate, and seemed genuinely committed to building a life together. We moved into a 3-bedroom house in Newton, a pretty colonial with a white picket fence and a yard perfect for the children we planned to have. I had secretly purchased the house with cash through one of my shell companies, but put Marcus's name on the deed as a wedding gift, a gesture of trust that would later haunt me. When I got pregnant with Emma, Marcus seemed overjoyed. He painted the nursery himself soft yellow, with hand-stenciled elephants on the walls. He read parenting books voraciously and came to every doctor's appointment. When Emma was born, he cried harder than I did holding our tiny daughter and promising her he would always protect her, always be there for her, always love her more than life itself. Those promises started cracking when Emma was about 2 years old. Marcus began complaining about money constantly, despite the fact that we lived comfortably on his $70,000 salary plus my supposed $40,000 from freelance work. In reality, I was pulling in about $300,000 annually from my consulting work with sterling subsidiaries, but I hid most of it in investment accounts, not wanting to raise questions about how a freelance marketer could earn so much. He started making comments about other wives who contributed more financially. His colleague Brad's wife was a surgeon. His brother Tony's wife was a corporate lawyer. Even his friend Mike's wife managed to run a successful online boutique while raising 3 kids. Why he would ask with barely concealed resentment was I content to just dabble in marketing and play housewife. The irony was not lost on me. While he complained about my lack of ambition, I was secretly participating in board meetings via video conference, making decisions about acquisitions worth hundreds of millions, and managing a personal investment portfolio that had grown to over $50 million. But I bit my tongue. Told myself this was temporary, that once Emma was older, I would gradually reveal more about my career success. 6 months ago, everything changed. Marcus started working late, coming home at 10 or 11 instead of his usual 7. His clothes carried the scent of unfamiliar perfume, something floral and cloying that made my stomach turn. He became protective of his phone, taking it with him, even to the bathroom, enabling fingerprint lock when he had always used a simple passcode we both knew. Business trips increased from once a quarter to twice a month, always to cities where Sterling Industries coincidentally had offices, though I knew he was not there for any meetings I was aware of. The credit card statements told their own story. Charges at restaurants I had never been to, always for amounts that suggested 2 people dining. Hotel rooms in the city when he was supposedly at conferences in other states. A $1,500 charge at Cartier. That certainly was not for my birthday or Christmas. When I asked about it, he said it was a watch for his boss's retirement gift, a group purchase from the team. I knew he was lying, but wanted to believe otherwise. Emma noticed the change too. At 6 years old, she was perceptive beyond her years, inheriting not just the Sterling family's distinctive blue eyes, but also our sharp intuition. She would ask why Daddy did not read her bedtime stories anymore, why he was always looking at his phone during dinner, why he seemed angry all the time. I made excuses, said Daddy was just busy at work, that he still loved us very much, that everything would go back to normal soon. 3 weeks before that December night, I found the evidence I had been avoiding. Marcus had left his laptop open while he showered, his emails still logged in. The messages from Veronica were explicit, not just about their physical relationship, but about their future plans. She called me the ball and chain, the boring housewife he was stuck with. He called her his real partner, his equal, the woman he should have married. They discussed apartments they would rent together once his divorce was final, the trips they would take with his settlement money, the life they would build without the burden of a child from a previous relationship. That was when I made my decision. I would give him one more chance to come clean, to choose his family, to remember the vows he had made. I scheduled a couples therapy session, told him I knew something was wrong and wanted to work through it together. He laughed in my face, said therapy was for weak people who could not handle their own problems, that the only problem in our marriage was my lack of ambition and constant nagging. So I called Thomas Crawford, the senior partner at Crawford Keller and Associates, the law firm that had handled sterling family matters for 3 generations. I told him to prepare for what was coming, to have everything ready at a moment's notice. Thomas, who had known me since I was in diapers, promised he would handle everything with the discretion and efficiency the Sterling name demanded. I also called my father, finally ready to tell him the truth about my marriage. William Sterling listened in silence as I explained 8 years of deception, both mine and Marcus's. When I finished, he said only 5 words that chilled me more than any angry outburst could have. Handle it as you see fit. In the Sterling family, that was carte blanche to use every resource at our disposal. The stage was set for what would happen on December 15th, though I had no idea Marcus would choose the cruelest possible way to end our marriage, or that karma would work quite so quickly in delivering justice. December 15th started like any other Saturday, except for the weather reports warning of the incoming blizzard. The meteorologists were calling it a once-in-a-decade storm, expecting 2 to 3 feet of snow and wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. Emma was excited about the possibility of building snowmen, and I had promised her we would make hot chocolate and watch movies all day while the storm raged outside. Marcus had been unusually calm at breakfast, almost cheerful as he ate his eggs and bacon. He even ruffled Emma's hair affectionately, something he had not done in months. Looking back, I should have recognized the signs of someone who had made a decision and felt relieved by it, but I was still hoping, still believing that somehow we could salvage what we had built together. At exactly noon, the doorbell rang. Marcus jumped up to answer it with an eagerness that made my stomach drop. When he returned to the living room, Veronica was with him. She was 28 years old with bottle blonde hair and the kind of artificial beauty that required significant maintenance. Her designer coat probably cost more than Marcus claimed we had in our monthly budget. Her smile was triumphant as she looked around our home, taking inventory of what would soon be hers. Emma looked up from her colouring book, confused by the stranger in our house. "Who is she, Daddy?" My daughter's innocent question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Marcus did not even look at Emma when he answered. "This is Veronica, my girlfriend. She is going to be living here now. Mommy and you need to leave." The words were so casual, so matter-of-fact, that for a moment I thought I had misheard. Emma's crayon dropped from her hand, rolling across the hardwood floor in the sudden silence. Outside, the first snowflakes were beginning to fall, deceptively gentle for what was coming. I found my voice, though it sounded strange to my own ears. "What are you talking about, Marcus? This is our home. Emma lives here. We are not going anywhere." Veronica laughed, a tinkling sound that grated like nails on chalkboard. She moved closer to Marcus, linking her arm through his possessively. "Actually, this is Marcus's house. His name is on the deed after all, and he has asked you to leave. Today. Now, actually." Marcus finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes was worse than hatred. It was complete indifference, as if 8 years of marriage and a child together meant absolutely nothing. He pulled out a manila envelope from behind his back and threw it on the coffee table. "These are separation papers. I am filing for divorce on grounds of incompatibility. You have failed to be the partner I need, Isla. You lack ambition, drive success. You are content being a nobody raising a kid and pretending your little marketing jobs mean something. Veronica is senior vice president at her company. She makes $200,000 a year. She is going places, and I am going with her." The irony of his words would have been funny if Emma was not sitting there, tears streaming down her face as she tried to understand why her father was being so cruel. I wanted to scream that I was worth more than him and his mistress combined, that I could buy and sell his entire company with my pocket change, but Emma did not need to witness that kind of confrontation. "You cannot just kick us out," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "This is Emma's home. She has school on Monday. Her friends are here. Her life is here." Marcus shrugged, the gesture so callous it took my breath away. That is your problem to figure out. You are a grown woman, are you not? Or have you become so dependent on me that you cannot even handle finding somewhere to stay? Veronica pulled out her phone and started scrolling, her long acrylic nails clicking against the screen. There is a motel about 10 miles away that takes emergency housing. I think they charge by the hour though, so you might want to find something more permanent quickly. The cruelty of suggesting an hourly motel for a mother and child would have been shocking from strangers. From the man who had promised to love and cherish me, it was devastating. Emma had started crying harder, clutching her favourite stuffed elephant to her chest. Please, Marcus, I tried one more time. At least let us pack properly. Let Emma take her toys, her clothes. The storm is getting worse. This is dangerous. He looked at his watch, a Rolex I now realised had probably been bought with money stolen from our joint accounts. You have 10 minutes to pack what you can carry. One suitcase, that is it. Veronica needs to set up her things, and you are in the way. I stood up. Dignity, the only thing I had left in that moment. Emma, sweetheart, we are going on an adventure. Go get your backpack and put your favourite things in it, okay? My brave little girl nodded, wiping her tears as she ran to her room. I could hear her trying not to sob as she packed, and it broke my heart into pieces I was not sure would ever fit back together. I went to our bedroom where Veronica had already started hanging her clothes in my closet. She had pushed my things to the side, some falling on the floor, stepped on by her designer heels. I grabbed the small suitcase from under the bed and started throwing in whatever I could reach. Warm clothes for Emma and me, her medication for asthma, my laptop that Marcus tried to grab from my hands. You do not need that, he said. It is probably company property anyway, from whatever temp job you are doing now. It is mine, I said firmly, holding it against my chest. Just like the 8 years I wasted on you were mine. Just like the love I gave you, that you threw away, was mine. He laughed, actually laughed in my face. Love, you think what we had was love. It was settling, Isla. I settled for you because I thought you had potential, but you peaked at 25 and it has been downhill ever since. Veronica is everything you are not. Sophisticated, successful, connected. She knows people, important people, people who can advance my career. If only he knew the people I knew. If only he understood that with one phone call, I could end not just his career, but his entire future. But again, that was not a card I was ready to play, not with Emma listening from the hallway. Mummy, I am ready, Emma's small voice called out. She appeared with her little backpack stuffed so full, the zipper barely closed. Her eyes were red and puffy, but she was trying to be brave for me. We headed toward the door, but Marcus blocked our path one more time. Oh, I almost forgot. Your car is not going anywhere. I had it disabled this morning. Cannot have you taking marital property before the divorce is settled. I looked at him in disbelief. You disabled my car in a blizzard with a 6-year-old child. How are we supposed to leave? He shrugged again, that same dismissive gesture. Call an Uber. Call a friend. Walk for all I care. Just get out of my house. Veronica appeared with a glass of wine, my wine from the bottle I had been saving for a special occasion. She raised it in a mock toast. Good luck out there, Isla. I hear the shelters fill up fast on nights like this. I took Emma's hand and walked to the door with as much dignity as I could muster. The cold hit us immediately, the wind already howling and snow falling heavily. Emma gasped and pressed closer to me. Before I closed the door behind us, I turned back one more time. You will regret this, Marcus. Not because of what I will do to you, but because of what you have chosen to become. Someday, when Veronica does to you what you are doing to me, you will remember this moment. He laughed one more time. The only thing I will remember is finally being free of dead weight. Enjoy your new life, Isla. Whatever that looks like for someone with no money, no job, and no future. The door slammed shut, the sound echoing in the swirling snow. Emma looked up at me, her little face already pink from the cold. "Mummy, where are we going?" I picked her up, suitcase in one hand, my daughter in my arms, and started walking through the blizzard. Somewhere warm, baby. Somewhere safe. Somewhere far better than here. My phone was buzzing insistently in my pocket. 47 missed calls from Thomas Crawford. He must have been monitoring the security cameras at the house, one of the precautions I had taken without Marcus's knowledge. The cavalry was about to arrive, but first, Emma and I needed to get somewhere safe. The wind cut through our clothes like frozen knives as we struggled through the already accumulating snow. Emma was shivering violently in my arms, her little body trying to generate heat against the brutal cold. Each step was a battle against the blizzard, and I knew we could not stay outside much longer without risking serious harm. My phone showed 20% battery and dropping fast in the cold. The nearest safe place was a 24-hour coffee shop 6 blocks away, but in this weather it felt like 6 miles. Emma's lips were already turning blue, and her tears had frozen on her cheeks. "Mummy, I am so cold," she whispered against my neck, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. "I know, baby. Just a little farther. We are going to get hot chocolate. Remember, the biggest hot chocolate you have ever seen." I tried to shield her from the worst of the wind with my body, but the snow was coming horizontally now, stinging our faces like tiny needles. Cars crawled by their drivers, focused on navigating the dangerous conditions, not noticing a mother and child struggling through the storm. Or perhaps they noticed and simply did not care, too worried about their own safety to stop. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was probably 20 minutes, we stumbled through the door of the coffee shop. The warmth hit us like a physical force, making our frozen skin tingle painfully as it began to thaw. The shop was nearly empty, just the lone barista and an elderly man reading a newspaper in the corner. The barista, a young woman with kind eyes and multiple piercings, took one look at us and rushed over. "Oh my God, are you okay? Here, sit down. Let me get you some towels and hot drinks." She disappeared into the back and returned with clean dish towels and 2 steaming mugs of hot chocolate. Emma wrapped her small hands around the mug, still shaking, but starting to warm up. I used one of the towels to dry her hair, trying not to cry at how close we had come to serious danger. "Thank you," I managed to say to the barista. "Can we use your bathroom? I need to make some phone calls." "Of course. Take all the time you need. The bathroom is just down that hallway. I will keep an eye on your daughter." I looked at Emma, who was focused on her hot chocolate, then at the barista's concerned face. She had a name tag that said Amy, and something about her reminded me of myself at that age before money and marriage and complications. "Emma, sweetie, I need to make some important calls. Stay here with Amy, okay? I will be right back." Emma nodded, too exhausted to protest. I grabbed my phone and headed to the bathroom, locking the door behind me before my composure completely shattered. The first call was to my father. He answered on the first ring, despite it being nearly midnight in Switzerland. "Isla, darling, what is wrong? Thomas has been trying to reach you. He says there is activity at the house." My voice broke as I told him everything. The confrontation, Veronica being thrown out into the blizzard with Emma, the disabled car, the complete cruelty of it all. I could hear his breathing change, becoming slower and more controlled, which anyone who knew William Sterling understood meant he was furious beyond measure. "That bastard threw my granddaughter out in a blizzard." His voice was deadly quiet. "Dad, I need you to know I am done. Done pretending, done hiding, done playing the normal housewife. I want everything activated. Every account, every resource, every connection. I want Marcus to understand exactly who he just made his enemy. Consider it done. Where are you now? A coffee shop on Commonwealth Avenue. Emma is safe but cold and scared. We need somewhere to go. James will be there in 15 minutes with the car. The Beacon Hill house is ready. Staff has been notified. Dr. Morrison is on standby to check Emma and Isla. By tomorrow morning, Marcus will understand the magnitude of his mistake. I made the second call to Thomas Crawford, the senior partner of Boston's most powerful law firm, answered immediately, despite it being Saturday evening. Isla, thank God. I have been monitoring the situation. Shall I proceed with the emergency protocols? Everything, Thomas. The house deed transfer was fraudulent. Marcus forged my signature. I have the originals in the safe, the joint accounts he has been draining for his mistress, the credit cards in my name he has been using. I want criminal charges, civil suits, everything. Thomas's voice carried the satisfaction of a lawyer about to destroy someone who desperately deserved it. I have been documenting everything for the past 6 months as you instructed. The forensic accountants found some interesting patterns. Did you know Mr. Marcus has been embezzling from his employer small amounts, but consistent, enough to fund his lifestyle with Ms. Veronica? I was not surprised. Marcus had always been greedy, but I had not realized he was also stupid enough to steal from his company. That information would be useful. Also, Thomas continued, Ms. Veronica is not who she claims to be. She does not hold the position she told Marcus. She is an administrative assistant, not a senior vice president. Her salary is $45,000, not $200,000, and she is married. Her husband is deployed military in California. This time I was surprised. Veronica had been lying to Marcus as much as he had been lying to me. There was poetic justice in that, though I felt a moment of sympathy for her actual husband, serving his country, while his wife played house with another woman's husband. One more thing, Thomas added. Sterling Industries holds a 30% stake in Marcus's company through our venture capital division. Your father sits on the board under his corporate alias. One phone call and Marcus is unemployed. Shall I make that call? Not yet. Let him enjoy his last night of thinking he won. Tomorrow we bring his whole world down. I made one final call to James, our family's head of household staff at the Beacon Hill estate. The British butler had served our family for 30 years and was more like an uncle to me than an employee. Miss Isla, your father has already called. Everything is prepared. The nursery suite has been set up for Miss Emma with new toys and clothes. The chef is preparing her favourite foods. Security is in place. Your suite has also been prepared with everything you might need. The family is taking care of you now. The tears I had been holding back finally fell. After 8 years of pretending to be someone else, I was finally going home. Emma and I were finally safe. When I returned to the main coffee shop area, I found Emma curled up on the bench, almost asleep. Amy, the barista, had covered her with what looked like her own jacket. I pulled out my wallet to pay for the hot chocolate and leave a tip, but Amy waved me away. No charge. Just take care of that little girl, and maybe find a better husband next time. If she only knew that in my wallet next to the $20 bill I tried to give her was a black American Express card with no limit. If she only knew that the exhausted woman in wet clothes was worth more than everyone in Marcus's company combined. But she did not need to know that. Her kindness came from her heart, not from knowing who I was. 10 minutes later, a Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up outside the coffee shop, followed by 2 black SUVs. James stepped out with an umbrella, his impeccable suit unruffled by the storm. Amy's jaw dropped as she watched through the window. I picked up Emma, who stirred sleepily. The car looks fancy, Mummy. It is our car, sweetheart. We are going to our real home now. We have another home. Her confusion was heartbreaking. Yes, baby, a much better home, where no one can ever make us leave. James held the umbrella over us as we walked to the car. Once inside the heated interior, Emma gasped at the luxury surrounding us. The leather seats, the crystal glasses, the small refrigerator stocked with her favourite snacks. It was like entering another world, which, in a way, it was. As we drove through the blizzard toward Beacon Hill, I looked back one last time at the coffee shop where we had found shelter. Tomorrow, I would send Amy a thank you that would change her life, a full scholarship to any college she wanted perhaps, or seed money for her own coffee shop. Kindness like hers deserved to be rewarded. But first, Marcus and Veronica needed to learn what happened when you kicked a sterling out into the cold. They were about to discover that some women did not need husbands to save them. Some women could buy and destroy their husbands with a single phone call, and tomorrow morning I would make that call. The Sterling family estate in Beacon Hill was a different universe from the suburban house Marcus and I had shared. The massive Georgian mansion built in 1847 stood behind iron gates and perfectly manicured gardens now covered in snow. 22 rooms, including 8 bedrooms, a ballroom, a library, and a staff wing, all maintained in pristine condition by a team of 20 employees. Emma's eyes were wide as saucers as James carried her through the marble foyer. Paintings by masters I had grown up seeing every day lined the walls. A Monet here, a Degas there, a Picasso sketch in the hallway, the chandelier in the entryway, Austrian crystal from the 1800s, cast rainbows across Emma's amazed face. "Welcome home, Miss Isla," James said formally, though his eyes were warm. "The staff is assembled in the morning room whenever you are ready. Dr. Morrison is waiting in the blue sitting room to examine Miss Emma." Emma clung to my hand as we walked through rooms she had never seen before. This was the life I had hidden from her, from Marcus, from everyone. Persian rugs that belonged in museums, furniture that had been in my family for generations, technology seamlessly integrated into historical architecture. Dr. Morrison, our family physician for 2 decades, examined Emma gently and thoroughly. She had mild hypothermia symptoms, but nothing serious thanks to getting inside when we did. He prescribed warm baths, hot fluids, and rest writing everything down for the staff, while Emma marvelled at his old-fashioned doctor's bag. The nursery suite prepared for Emma was every little girl's dream. Not the gaudy excess of new money, but the thoughtful luxury of old wealth. A 4-poster bed with a canopy of soft pink silk, a window seat overlooking the private garden shelves already stocked with books and toys appropriate for her age. Someone, probably James, had even found the exact stuffed elephant she loved, knowing she had to leave hers behind. "Is this really ours, Mummy?" Emma asked, running her hands over the soft cashmere blanket on the bed. "Yes, sweetheart, this has always been ours. I just wanted to wait until you were old enough to understand what that sometimes people love us for the wrong reasons. That is why I wanted to make sure Daddy loved us for who we are, not what we have." Emma's face fell at the mention of her father, but Daddy did not love us at all, did he? I gathered her into my arms, this precious child, who deserved so much better than what she had witnessed today. I think Daddy loved us the best way he knew how, but sometimes that is not enough. Sometimes people change, or maybe they just show who they really were all along. After Emma was bathed, fed, and tucked into her princess bed, with 3 staff members on rotation to check on her through the night, I finally retreated to my own suite. My childhood bedroom had been updated, but still felt like home. The wall of windows overlooking the Charles River. The sitting area where I used to read for hours. The walk-in closet that was bigger than most apartments. My phone had been charging and the notifications were overwhelming. 53 missed calls from Thomas. 20 from my father, 18 from various Sterling Industries executives who had been alerted to the situation. 3 from Marcus, probably realising the car was worth more than he thought and wanting to claim it. 1 from my stepmother in California, my father's second wife, who I actually liked, offering to fly out immediately. I called my father first. He was already on his private jet flying back from Switzerland, despite the weather warnings. William Sterling did not let something as trivial as a blizzard keep him from his daughter and granddaughter in crisis. The house transfer was fraudulent, he confirmed. Thomas has the documentation. Marcus also took out several credit cards in your name without your knowledge. That is identity theft and fraud. The FBI will be interested in that, especially combined with his embezzlement from his company. How bad is the embezzlement? About 200,000 over 3 years. Small amounts from multiple accounts, probably thinking no one would notice. But Sterling Industries owns enough of his company that we can request a full forensic audit. We will find more. What about Veronica? My father chuckled, but there was no humour in it. Ms. Veronica Patterson, married name Veronica Chen, has quite a history. 3 restraining orders from previous relationships, a conviction for credit card fraud that she had expunged but our investigators found, currently being investigated by her own company for expense report fraud. Her husband has been deployed for 8 months and has no idea what she is doing, so they were perfect for each other. 2 liars who found each other and destroyed a family in the process. Dad, I want them to lose everything. Everything they thought they were taking from me. Everything they had before everything they might have in the future. I want them to understand what it feels like to stand in the cold with nothing. My father's voice was proud. That is my daughter. By tomorrow night, they will both be unemployed, homeless, and facing federal charges. Their assets will be frozen, their reputations destroyed, and their futures non-existent. No one touches a sterling and walks away unscathed. After we hung up, I sat in my childhood window seat, looking out at the city lights, blurred by still falling snow. Somewhere out there, Marcus and Veronica were probably celebrating their victory. Drinking my wine, sleeping in my bed, planning their future with money they thought I did not have. 24 hours. That is all they had left of their delusions. Tomorrow morning, Thomas Crawford would arrive at their door with a team of lawyers and federal agents. Tomorrow morning, Marcus would learn that the nobody he had kicked out was somebody beyond his wildest imagination. Tomorrow morning, the truth would hit harder than any blizzard. But tonight, I held my daughter as she slept in a room fit for a princess, safe and warm and protected by wealth Marcus could never have imagined. Tonight, I stopped being Isla Matthews, the struggling freelance marketer. Tonight, I remembered who I really was. Isla Sterling, heiress mother and a woman who was about to teach her ex-husband the most expensive lesson of his worthless life. Sunday morning arrived with brilliant sunshine, reflecting off 2 feet of fresh snow, making the world outside look deceptively peaceful and pure. Emma woke up confused, taking a moment to remember where she was before the previous day's trauma came flooding back. But children are resilient, and the novelty of her princess room quickly distracted her from darker thoughts. James had arranged for breakfast in the smaller dining room, the one that only sat 12, instead of the formal room that could accommodate 30. Emma gasped at the spread laid out just for us. Fresh pastries from the French bakery on Newbury Street, fruit arranged like artwork eggs, Benedict prepared by our cordon bleu trained chef, fresh squeezed orange juice in crystal glasses that caught the morning light. Meanwhile, across the city in Newton, Thomas Crawford was about to deliver justice with the precision of a surgical strike. I had given him the go-ahead at 7 a.m., and by 7:30, 3 black SUVs were pulling up to the house Marcus had stolen from me. Thomas called me at 8:15, his voice carrying the satisfaction of a job well done. Would you like to hear the play-by-play or just the highlights? Everything, Thomas. I want to hear everything. According to Thomas's team, Marcus had answered the door in his boxer shorts and nothing else, clearly expecting perhaps a delivery or lost tourist in the snow. His face when he saw 5 lawyers and 2 federal agents was, according to Thomas, a masterpiece of shock transforming into terror. Veronica had come running down the stairs in my silk robe, the one my father had brought me from Japan, screaming about harassment and threatening to call the police. The federal agents had shown their badges and suggested she might want to get dressed before they arrested her for fraud identity theft. and conspiracy to commit embezzlement. The papers Thomas delivered were comprehensive. Criminal charges for the fraudulent house transfer, with evidence that Marcus had forged my signature on multiple documents. Bank records showing systematic theft from our joint accounts. Credit card statements for cards opened in my name without my knowledge used to fund his affair with Veronica. And the pièce de résistance proof of his embezzlement from his company discovered during a Sterling Industries requested audit. But the best part, Thomas said with undisguised glee, was when Marcus finally asked who you really were. When I told him you were Isla Sterling, heir to Sterling Industries, he actually fainted. Literally fainted, Isla. The federal agents had to revive him with smelling salts. What about the house immediately frozen as a crime scene and asset under investigation? They have been given 2 hours to pack personal belongings under federal supervision. Anything purchased with stolen funds, which is most of it, stays, including all of Veronica's designer clothes and jewellery that Marcus bought with your money. My phone buzzed with an incoming call from Marcus. I let it go to voicemail, then played it on speaker for Thomas to hear. Isla, please God, please call me back. This is a misunderstanding. I did not know who you were. I love you. I have always loved you. Veronica means nothing. She seduced me. Please, we can work this out. Emma needs her father. I need my family. Please, Isla, please call me. The desperation in his voice should have made me feel something. Sympathy, perhaps, or at least pity, but all I felt was cold satisfaction and relief that Emma was playing in the next room, unable to hear her father's pathetic grovelling. The second call came from Veronica, her voice shrill with panic. You lying bitch! You set us up. This is entrapment or something. My husband is military. When he finds out what you have done, you will be sorry. This is not over. I will sue you for everything. Thomas laughed at that one. She wants to sue a billionaire while facing federal fraud charges. With what money? Her assets are frozen, and her military husband just got an interesting package of photos and documents about his wife's activities while he was deployed. I doubt he will be funding her legal defense. By noon, the news had somehow leaked to the media. The Boston Globe ran an online piece titled "Billionaire Heiress Reveals Identity After Husband's Betrayal." Social media exploded with the story. Marcus's photo from his company website became a meme with captions like, "Fumbled a billionaire for a fraud," and "When you cheat on a secret billionaire." Marcus's company released a statement by 2 p.m. that he had been terminated effective immediately pending investigation of financial irregularities. Veronica's company followed suit an hour later, citing violation of company ethics policies and ongoing fraud investigations. Their professional lives built on lies and stolen money collapsed in a matter of hours. Emma and I spent the day in deliberate ignorance of the chaos unfolding. We built a snowman in the private garden with the staff helping to roll the massive snowballs. We baked cookies in the kitchen, the chef patiently teaching Emma how to use a piping bag. We watched movies in the media room, cuddled under cashmere blankets, while eating popcorn from silver bowls. But by evening, Marcus had found out where we were. Security cameras showed him at the gates on his knees in the snow, begging through the intercom to be let in. His car, a BMW he had leased with stolen funds, had already been repossessed. He had taken an Uber to Beacon Hill, probably spending his last cash on the ride. Please, Isla, let me see Emma. Let me explain. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. You are my wife. Emma is my daughter. You cannot just cut me out. I will do anything. Therapy, counselling, whatever you want. Please just talk to me. Security did not even bother calling up to the house. They had their orders. Marcus was to be considered a threat, and police would be called if he did not leave voluntarily. After an hour of pleading into an unresponsive intercom, he finally left, but not before screaming that he would fight for custody, that no court would keep a father from his child. Thomas called again that evening with an update. Veronica's military husband had begun divorce proceedings and was flying back from deployment on emergency leave. Her previous victims of fraud had been contacted and were eager to testify. Marcus's embezzlement was worse than initially thought, approaching $500,000 when all accounts were examined. Both would likely face prison time. The media attention intensified overnight. My father had tried to keep my name out of it, but in the age of social media, secrets did not last long. By Monday morning, everyone knew that Marcus Chen had cheated on and kicked out Isla Sterling, heir to one of America's oldest fortunes. The public humiliation was complete and devastating. Marcus tried everything. He sent flowers that were refused at the gate. He had his lawyer send a letter proposing reconciliation that Thomas laughed at before shredding. He even had his mother call the woman who had always treated me as not good enough for her son, now begging me to forgive him, to think of Emma, to remember our wedding vows. But I was done remembering vows that Marcus had broken. I was done pretending to be less than I was. I was done accepting crumbs when I owned the entire bakery. Tuesday morning, we received word that Veronica had been arrested on fraud charges unrelated to Marcus. Turns out she had been running a credit card scam on the side, using her position to access customer information. Marcus was arrested the same afternoon for embezzlement and identity theft. Their mugshots made the evening news. The Boston Federal Courthouse was a modern glass and steel structure that seemed to gleam in the winter sunshine. 2 weeks had passed since that terrible night in the blizzard, and Marcus's criminal arraignment was scheduled for 9 a.m. I did not need to be there, but Thomas thought it would send a powerful message if I appeared, showing that I was not hiding and not ashamed. I dressed carefully in a black Chanel suit that cost more than Marcus made in 3 months, paired with the diamond earrings my mother had left me. The outfit was armor, a declaration that I was no longer pretending to be anything other than exactly who I was. A sterling woman who had been underestimated for the last time. Emma was safely at the Beacon Hill estate with her new tutor, beginning the homeschooling program we had arranged until I could get her into one of Boston's elite private schools. She had been seeing a child therapist to process the trauma, but was showing remarkable resilience. Children, the therapist reminded me, often handle change better than adults. The courthouse steps were crowded with media when our convoy of cars arrived. 3 black SUVs, bulletproof and imposing, with security guards who cleared a path through the photographers. I walked through the gauntlet with my head high, sunglasses hiding my eyes, feeling like someone else entirely from the woman who had begged Marcus to let her take her daughter's toys 2 weeks ago. Inside the courtroom, Marcus looked like he had aged 10 years in 2 weeks. His expensive suit was gone, replaced by a rumpled outfit that looked borrowed. His perfectly styled hair was unkempt, his face gaunt from stress and lack of sleep. When he saw me enter, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and desperation that was almost pitiful. Veronica was also there, sitting several rows away from Marcus with her own lawyer. Her bottle blonde hair was showing dark roots, her designer clothes replaced by a basic pantsuit. The confident mistress who had worn my robe while throwing me out was gone, replaced by a frightened woman facing serious prison time. The judge, Honourable Patricia Winters, was known for having no patience for financial crimes or domestic cruelty. She reviewed the charges against Marcus with clinical detachment. Embezzlement, identity, theft, fraud, forgery. The list went on for several minutes, each charge adding years to potential prison time. Marcus's lawyer, a public defender since he could no longer afford private counsel, tried to paint his client as a man who had made mistakes but was essentially good, a father who loved his daughter, a husband who had lost his way, a professional who had one lapse in judgment. Thomas stood to respond, and his destruction of that narrative was surgical. He presented evidence of systematic theft going back years, emails between Marcus and Veronica planning to take everything from me. Bank records showing Marcus had been preparing to empty our accounts and disappear. A particularly damning text where Marcus called Emma baggage from his failed marriage that he would not have to deal with much longer. I heard several gasps from the gallery at that one. Even Veronica looked shocked, apparently, not knowing Marcus had been planning to abandon his daughter entirely once he had secured enough money to start fresh. The judge denied bail, citing Marcus as a flight risk and a danger to his victims. He would remain in custody until trial, which could take months or even years, given the complexity of the charges. As the bailiff led him away in handcuffs, Marcus turned to look at me one more time. He mouthed please, but I simply stared through him as if he did not exist. Veronica's arraignment immediately followed. Her charges were even more extensive, including the credit card fraud scheme that predated her involvement with Marcus. Her military husband, David Chen, was in the gallery, still in uniform, his face a mask of controlled rage. He had flown back from Afghanistan to deal with the destruction of his marriage. After the arraignments, I met David Chen in the courthouse cafe. He was a good man who had been betrayed as badly as I had. We talked for an hour about our respective spouses, the lies they had told, the lives they had destroyed. He showed me pictures of their 2 young sons, ages 3 and 5, who were now staying with his mother in California. She told me she was working late, supporting us while I was deployed, he said, voice heavy with exhausted sadness. I was sending her my combat pay, thinking I was providing for my family. She was using it to play house with your husband. They deserved each other, I said, meaning it. 2 narcissists who thought everyone else existed just to serve their needs. What are you going to do now? He asked. Raise my daughter, run my company, show her that women do not need anyone to save them. What about you? Get my boys back, file for sole custody. Try to explain to them why Mommy will not be coming home for a very long time. Maybe ever, depending on the sentence. We exchanged numbers, not for any romantic reason, but because we were now part of the same horrible club. The betrayed spouses of criminals who had found each other. There was comfort in knowing someone else understood the particular humiliation of being fooled so completely by someone you loved. That afternoon, my father arrived from Switzerland. William Sterling commanded attention wherever he went, and the Beacon Hill estate seemed to come alive with his presence. At 71, he was still formidable with silver hair and piercing blue eyes that Emma had inherited. He swept his granddaughter into his arms as if she weighed nothing, making her giggle for the first time since everything happened. "My little princess," he said to Emma, "you look just like your grandmother. She would be so proud of how brave you have been." Emma beamed at the comparison. She had seen pictures of my mother who died when I was 22, just before I met Marcus. Sometimes I wondered if grief had made me vulnerable to his initial charm, if I had been looking for stability after loss and mistook control for strength. That evening we had a family dinner in the formal dining room. My stepmother Margaret had flown in from California, my half-brother James from London, where he ran Sterling Industries' European division, and my half-sister Sarah from Dubai, where she managed our Middle Eastern holdings. For the first time in years, the Sterling family was together, united in protection of one of our own. The conversation was deliberately light around Emma, but after she went to bed, the gloves came off. William Sterling did not just want Marcus punished, he wanted him destroyed so completely that he would serve as a warning to anyone who might think of crossing our family again. "I have already made some calls," James said. "Marcus will never work in finance again. I have personally contacted every major firm in the country. His name is poison now." Sarah added her own contribution. "The Middle Eastern sovereign funds I work with have blacklisted him internationally. Even if he somehow avoids prison and tries to start fresh abroad, doors will be closed." Margaret, who ran a successful tech company before marrying my father, had her own news. Veronica's fraud goes deeper than anyone realized. She has been running romance scams online for years, targeting military wives while their husbands were deployed. The FBI is building a RICO case. The family machinery was in motion, and there was no stopping it now. The Sterlings had built their fortune over 5 generations, and we protected what was ours with ruthless efficiency. Marcus and Veronica had attacked one of our own, had thrown a Sterling child into a blizzard, and for that they would pay a price that would follow them for the rest of their lives. But as I sat at that table, surrounded by family, who had flown across the world to support me, I realized something important. The revenge, while satisfying, was not the real victory. The real victory was Emma upstairs, safe and loved, and beginning to understand that she came from a legacy of strength. The real victory was me no longer hiding who I was, no longer accepting less than I deserved. Marcus had done me a favor, though he would never know it. By kicking me out into that blizzard, he had forced me to stop pretending. He had freed me from a marriage built on lies, from a life that was too small for who I really was. He had given me permission to be exactly who I was meant to be. And that person was not a victim. That person was not someone who needed saving. That person was Isla Sterling, and she was just getting started. 6 months later, Boston was experiencing the kind of perfect June day that made people forget about brutal winters. Emma and I were in the public garden feeding the ducks and enjoying the sunshine. She had adapted remarkably well to our new life, thriving at the Branson Academy, where she was making friends with children of ambassadors and CEOs. Her therapist said she was processing the trauma better than most adults would. My phone rang, showing Thomas Crawford's number. Marcus had finally agreed to a plea deal rather than risk trial. 18 months in federal prison, 5 years probation, and complete termination of parental rights to Emma. He would never bother us again legally, could not come within 1,000 feet of us, and would be a registered financial criminal for the rest of his life. Veronica had not been as lucky. Her fraud scheme was more extensive than anyone realized, spanning 6 states and involving dozens of victims. She was looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison. Her husband David had gotten full custody of their boys and was rebuilding his life in California. We exchanged emails occasionally, 2 single parents who understood each other's journey. The Sterling Industries Board had officially appointed me as Chief Operating Officer, a position I had been doing remotely for years, but could now claim publicly. My first initiative was creating a foundation for women escaping financial abuse, providing legal resources and temporary housing for those who, unlike me, did not have billions to fall back on. The coffee shop where Emma and I had taken shelter that night had become something of a pilgrimage site for me. Amy, the barista who had shown us kindness, was now the owner, thanks to an anonymous investor who had paid off the mortgage and provided renovation funds. She never knew it was me, and I preferred it that way. True kindness should be rewarded quietly. Marcus's mother had written me a letter from his prison account begging to be allowed to see Emma. I had thought long and hard about it, eventually deciding that Emma deserved to know her paternal grandmother, even if her father had forfeited that right. Supervised visits once a month with strict conditions, but it seemed cruel to punish an old woman for her son's crimes. Emma and I had also started a new tradition. Every Saturday, we would visit a different museum or cultural site in Boston, learning about art and history and science together. She had developed a particular love for the Museum of Fine Arts, often dragging me back to see the Egyptian collection. Her teachers said she was gifted particularly in mathematics and languages, already reading at a 4th grade level at age 6.5. But the biggest change was in me. I no longer apologized for who I was. I wore my designer clothes without guilt, drove my Bentley without shame, and lived in my Beacon Hill mansion without pretending it was anything other than exactly where I belonged. The years of hiding had taught me an important lesson, that being authentic was worth more than being accepted. Alexander Harrison entered our lives gradually and naturally. The CEO of a biotech startup that Sterling Industries was considering investing in, he first met me in a boardroom where I grilled him about his company's 5-year projections. He had not been intimidated by my wealth or position, treating me like a colleague rather than an heiress. It was refreshing enough that I agreed to coffee to discuss the potential partnership further. Coffee became lunch, lunch became dinner, dinner became Saturday afternoon trips to museums with Emma, who immediately took to him when he proved he could name all the Egyptian gods in her favourite exhibit. He never pushed, never assumed, never acted like he was entitled to our time or attention. He earned his place in our lives, one thoughtful gesture at a time. Alexander knew our entire story, had read about it in the papers like everyone else in Boston, but he never treated me like a victim or a tabloid headline. He saw me as Isla, a woman who happened to run a multi-billion-dollar company and was raising an extraordinary daughter. When he finally kissed me 4 months after that first coffee, it was with a tenderness that Marcus had never shown even in our best days. Emma called him Mr. Alex at first, then Uncle Alex, and recently just Alex, with the kind of casual affection that suggested she was beginning to trust again. He never tried to replace her father, never overstepped boundaries, just consistently showed up with reliability that helped heal some of the damage Marcus had done. The anniversary of the blizzard night approached with less dread than I expected. December 15th fell on a Saturday, and Boston was experiencing unseasonably warm weather. Emma and I decided to mark the day by doing something life-affirming rather than dwelling on the trauma. We volunteered at a women's shelter my foundation had recently renovated, serving lunch and playing with children who were experiencing their own family upheavals. Emma was gentle with the younger kids, sharing her toys and reading them stories. Watching her spread kindness, despite what she had experienced, made my heart swell with pride. That evening, we returned to the Beacon Hill estate to find Alexander had arranged a surprise. The garden had been transformed into a winter wonderland with artificial snow, twinkling lights, and an ice sculpture of a phoenix rising from flames. It was beautiful and symbolic and exactly what we needed. Marcus called from prison that night. I did not answer. He had nothing to say that I needed to hear. According to Thomas, he was not adjusting well to incarceration. The man who had thrown his family into a blizzard was now cold and alone in a federal cell, poetic justice that felt more sad than satisfying at this point. Veronica had tried to write me letters, each one blocked by Thomas's office before they reached me. Apparently, she still blamed me for her situation, unable to accept that her own crimes had caught up with her. Her husband, David, had remarried a kindergarten teacher who loved his boys like her own. Sometimes the universe provided better endings than the original story. My father visited monthly, flying in from wherever his business took him to spend time with his granddaughter. He was teaching Emma about business not formally, but through games and stories that made learning fun. She could already calculate compound interest and understood basic supply and demand. The Sterling legacy would continue, but on her terms, in her time. As I tucked Emma into bed that night, she asked me a question that stopped my heart. "Mummy, are you happy now? Really happy? Not just pretending?" I sat on her bed, smoothing her hair that was so like mine at that age. "Yes, sweetheart. I am really happy. Are you?" She thought about it seriously, the way children do when asked important questions. "I miss Daddy sometimes. The way he used to be, not the mean way at the end. But I am happy here. We are safe and Alex makes you laugh and Grandpa tells the best stories and I love my school. So, yes, I am happy too. We are quite a pair, are we not?" I said, kissing her forehead. "The strongest girls in Boston," she replied, quoting something my father had told her. That night, I stood at my bedroom window, looking out at the city lights. The same view I had from childhood, but everything else had changed. I was no longer the woman who had stood in a blizzard with her daughter betrayed and humiliated. I was no longer the wife who had hidden her truth to make someone else comfortable. I was no longer afraid of being too much. I was Isla Sterling, mother, executive survivor, and thriver. My ex-husband had thought he was trading up when he chose Veronica over me. Instead, he had traded away a fortune for fool's gold, a lifetime of security for 18 months of fantasy that ended in federal prison. The media had finally moved on to other scandals, though. Occasionally someone would recognize me and whisper about the billionaire who had been kicked out in a blizzard. I held my head high during those encounters, refusing to be ashamed of someone else's cruelty. Emma would grow up knowing her worth was not determined by anyone else's inability to see it. She would know that walking away from toxicity was strength, not failure. She would understand that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that could have happened. And someday, when she was old enough to understand the full story, I would tell her about the night her father revealed his true character, not to poison her against him, but to teach her that when someone shows you who they really are, you should believe them the first time. And then you should walk away even if it is into a blizzard, because any storm is better than a house built on lies. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have revealed your wealth immediately, or waited for the perfect moment like I did? Have you ever had someone underestimate you only to later realize their mistake? I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about resilience, revenge, and redemption. Share this with anyone who needs to remember that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find out you already had everything you needed within yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, the strongest steel goes through the hottest fire, and sometimes being kicked out into the cold is exactly what we need to find our way to warmth. May you always know your worth, especially when others are too blind to see it.